Hi guys, today we're going to work on actually practicing this horizontal and vertical stuff we've been talking about for the last couple days. So you'll notice in the middle of this, I have just written practice stretch and shrink for vertical and horizontal changes. So these are going to be examples of them, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we work about describing them and the kinds of detail that we need to include. So you'll notice on every single one of these, I've written describe, and we're going to add all the important parts of describing for each equation right underneath it. So on A, I have y equals 4x squared. So first of all, I see no parenthesis here around that, which means that I know it's got to be vertical. Okay, because with vertical, this number here is bigger than 1, it is going to be a stretch. Okay, now I'm going to go through and kind of get some of the important factors. First of all, if I talk about my factor, that's that number right there. So it's a vertical stretch of a factor of 4, because vertical, the factor is the way that it is. Because this value right here is greater or is positive, that means it's going to open up. If it is vertical stretch, that also means it's going to be a skinnier graph. So again, we're trying to take all of those description things that we've been using and trying to put them together. Okay, but this dialogue of something of a factor of this is something you're going to see a lot. So vertical or horizontal stretch or shrink is going to go here, a factor, and you're going to tell what it is. Talk about if it opens up or down, if it's skinnier, those kinds of things. Okay, let me turn this to move to the next one. Sorry, I'm just trying to turn it just a little bit more here. Okay, this one says describe y equals negative 4x squared. So no parentheses, so I know it's got to be vertical. I'm going to have to look at this value, and that number is less than negative 1, which means it's going to be a stretch. So if I talk about the factor, I have to go back to this number here. Remember, I just do it without the negative though. So it's a factor of 4. Okay, this one, they'll either say one of two things. Because this a value up here is negative, they'll either say that it opens down, or they'll say that it's reflected over the x-axis. It'll be one or the other. That's kind of a common piece that they talk about all the time. Okay, so when you talk about reflected over the x-axis, that just means it's going to be flipped upside down. Okay, because it is a vertical stretch, it is also skinnier. So again, we're just continuing to describe. Okay, let's look at our next one. So I'm going to describe y equals 3 over 7 x squared. So first of all, I can tell because that a value in front of x squared is positive that it opens up. Because there's no parentheses around this, I know it's going to be vertical. Because this number, though, is between negative 1 and 1, that means it's going to be a shrink. And this is going to be by a factor of 3/7. So remember, you are just using that number as your factor, and with vertical, exactly the way that it's written is the way it's used. Now, this one, because it's 3/7, it's between that -1 and 1 value. This is considered to be wider. Okay, let's take a look at a couple more. Okay, this one says describe y equals parenthesis 4x squared. So first of all, as soon as you see that there are parentheses here, you know it's got to be horizontal. And I'm going to have to use this number to determine which way. So because that number is bigger than 1, that means it's going to be a shrink. And when we talk about by a factor, remember, if it's horizontal, you have to flip it over. So remember, you'd have to pretend that that was 4/1. So by a factor of 1/4. Oops. I was trying to get rid of just that part. Well, holy Toledo. Okay, there we go. So by a factor of 1/4 here, because this value here is positive, we know this is going to open up. We also know because it is a horizontal shrink that it's going to be skinnier than its parent. Okay, one left. So I've described y equals 3/7 x, that quantity squared. So first of all, I know it's horizontal because it's got the parentheses around the outside. This number right here for A is between -1 and 1. So that means it's going to be a stretch. Talk about by a factor. And remember, we have to do the reciprocal. So if it's 3/7, then I'm going to make it 7/3. I do know what this one, because it's 3/7, we're going to have this opens up. And because it is a vertical stretch, it's going to be wider. Now listen, we're just starting to work on these, so don't get worried that you're not quite there yet as far as understanding. We're going to keep working on these.